Let's talk about Form 2290. And I want you to, here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. So, when you talk about Form 2290, of course, we are speaking about heavy highway vehicle use tax returns. So, it's a very specific niche to really be in. And so, you want to put the name and the EIN of the entity filing the Form 2290. You want to put the address of the entity, the town, the city, the state, the zip, everything. And you want to, at the bottom of the form, you want to actually put if this is applicable to an address change, an amended return, a VIN correction, or a final return. So for our case here, we have chosen a final return. So this is actually above part one. So this is those are preliminary cases, the preliminary information pieces that you have to submit. So let's talk about part one here. So we have a clear idea what we're speaking about. So part one, actually, you have to put the vehicle reported like if the vehicle that you're reporting on this form actually was on public highways during July of 2023, you put yes, okay. And so line two, you want to put the total from form 2290, page 2, column 4, that's 1,000. Line 3, you put the additional tax from increase in taxable gross weight in if this is applicable to you. And total tax on line 4, actually you just follow the math, so you add 2 and 3, you get 4. And if there are any credits, you want to actually claim it here. And the balance due, actually you have to subtract line 5 from line 4. So this is pretty straightforward, okay? And so this is part 1. Part 2 here, I want to show you, part 2 actually is a statement in support of suspension. So you want to actually complete the sections that apply to your situation. So we actually checked 5,000 miles or less. And so line 8A, you check the right form, and 8B if it's applicable to you. And so you do the same thing for 9. And the third party designee, you put the name of the person the IRS can actually reach out to if there's any problem. And don't forget to sign the form. This is important. So form 2290, you gotta sign the form. And I want to show you real quick a next screenshot on the screen here. You have the tax computation, how we got the $1,000 in the first place. And this is pretty straightforward. Another screenshot here, the schedule of heavy highway vehicles, showing you what it looks like. It's called Schedule 1. And part 2, I'm showing you part 2 on the screen, summary of reported vehicles. So you have a clear idea what I'm speaking about. And also there's another important part of Schedule 1, which is consent to disclosure of tax information. So this is it. And also a payment voucher on the screen. I'm showing you what everything looks like. So you have a clear idea what I'm speaking about here. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. I want to talk to you about the approach here. So when we talk about the Form 2290, we are speaking once again about heavy highway vehicle use tax returns. And so the purpose of the form is pretty straightforward. So we are talking about reporting taxable vehicles. So you are able to report information about taxable vehicles, which includes trucks, tractors, and buses. They have a gross weight of 55,000 pounds or more and are expected to travel 5,000 miles or more during the tax period. And another objective of this form is here is to help you calculate and pay the tax. So you are able to calculate the amount of federal excise tax owed based on the taxable vehicle's weight and usage. The tax rate varies depending on the vehicle's weight category. So the tax is typically paid annually, and the tax period runs from July 1st to June 30th of the following year. And also this form is great in terms of filing and record keeping. So you are able to, this tool is great for the IRS and the vehicle owners and operators. So if you're an owner operator out there, you will love the flexibility that Form 2290 gives you. So by following this form, you are able to provide necessary information about your vehicles and your tax liabilities. And it also helps the IRS maintain accurate records of heavy highway vehicle use and enforce compliance with tax regulations. And also you have proof of payment. So Form 2290, I showed you earlier the voucher, right? So this form provides proof of payment of the federal excise tax. So once the form is processed by the IRS and the tax is paid, The taxpayer receives a stamped Schedule 1, which serves as a proof of payment and must be carried in the vehicle as evidence that the tax has been paid. And this is one thing you want to have anyway in terms of compliance. So this Form 2290 has several benefits. You have a compliance with tax regulations, proof of payment, you have highway maintenance and development, compliance with state requirements, avoiding penalties and interest. You have also proper record keeping. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form 2290. Conversation, I said to you that Form 2290 apply to specific niches. So when we talk about eligibility for the Form 2290, we actually have a restricted number of categories. Okay, so you have owner operators, you have trucking companies, and then you have, in some cases, agricultural vehicles. You also have buses as well. Okay, now let's first talk about owner operators. So individuals who own and operate a heavy vehicle or heavy vehicles weighing 55 pounds or more and use it for business purposes actually will be eligible to file Form 2290. And also you have trucking companies. So businesses that own and operate heavy vehicles for business purposes also will find this interesting. And you also have agricultural vehicles. So vehicles used primarily for farming and agricultural purposes are eligible for a reduced HVUT rate if they travel fewer than 7,500 miles or 5,000 miles for vehicles used by a farm vehicle operator during the tax period. So it's important to really understand that the list I just gave you, owner operators, trucking companies, agricultural vehicles, buses, that list is not exhaustive. And there may be additional situations where Form 2290 needs to be filed. So it's one of those things where if you have any additional question or comments, let us know in the comment section below, and we'll certainly get back to you. We'll have to study your question. You have to study the state and the city and state where you are actually commenting from, and we will be able to adapt our answers specifically to your question. And one thing I want to say also that the tax laws are constantly changing. So what you want to do is you want to really you can reach out to a professional tax preparer like a CPA, an EA, or a tax attorney to kind of help you further. Or you can just reach out to tax authorities directly, to the IRS or to your state tax department to have a better view of your situation, especially when it comes to your specific entity, to your specific trucking operation, or to your specific owner operator business. I want to talk to you about the completion of Form 2290. I mean, let me give you a few step-by-steps here. So when we talk about, first of all, you have to gather information, okay? And because when we talk about the Form 2290, this form does require some transparency here. So you want to have things like your EIN, your VIN number, so your vehicle identification number, the gross weight of the vehicle, the taxable gross weight of the vehicle, and the first use month of the vehicle. So those are sensitive pieces of information that the IRS wants, and you want to make sure that you are accurate here. So you want to visit the official IRS websites, or you can use tax software approved by the IRS to download the Form 2290. And then you have to provide general information. So when we talk about general information, we're speaking about name, address, EIN, whatever I showed you at the beginning of the show. You also want to indicate whether you are filing as an individual or a business. I mean, if you are filing as an individual, that will be basically an owner operator. And you also want to enter the vehicle details. This is important. So we are speaking about the taxable gross weight in the first used month of each vehicle. If you have more than one vehicle, you can either provide the details of the form or attach a separate sheet with the information. And then you want to calculate the tax. So the tax actually will depend upon your situation. You also want to report suspended vehicles. So if you have any vehicles that are exempt from the HVUT due to, let's say, a limited usage, and this could be, I think I just said this a few minutes ago, agricultural vehicles or vehicles with low mileage, you want to report them. You want to report those vehicle categories in the suspended vehicles section of Form 2290. And you also want to sign and date. So it's always important when you file the Form 2290 to always sign and date the form so that the IRS knows that you have approved the form, okay? Because in some cases, the agency will not actually process the form if it's not properly signed by an authorized representative and dated and properly dated. Okay, and you may have to make a payment in relation to the Form 2290. So you want to calculate the total tax amount for all the vehicles and make the payment. I showed you the voucher earlier, so you can pay electronically using the Electronic Federal Tax Payment System, the EFTPS. You can pay by a credit card, you can pay by a debit card, you can pay by check or money order. It really depends on you. And submit the form. Okay, not a problem. And always keep a copy, by the way. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form 2290. Here. So when we talk about Form 2290, there are some special considerations that I want you to really keep in mind. And so it's important to understand that when we talk about taxable vehicles, we are speaking about a Form 2290 that is applicable to heavy vehicles with a gross weight of 55,000 pounds or more. They are used on public highways. However, there are certain types of vehicles that are exempt from this tax, and such as agricultural vehicles, government vehicles, and vehicles used for logging. So, and again, in terms of the e-filing requirements, you are able to actually e-file, not a problem. But there are some special circumstances. So let's say if you are reporting 25 or more vehicles on Form 2290, you are required to e-file the return. The IRS encourages all taxpayers to e-file because it is faster and more convenient method. I mean, the agency has a lot of, think about the number of returns the agency has to process every single month or year, for that matter. So for them, it's kind of encouraging to have an e-file and an e-filed 2290 as opposed to a manually filed one. And don't forget your EIN, very important. You cannot use your social security number for this for the purpose of this 2290. If you don't have an EIN, you can apply for one through the IRS website. And the filing deadlines are kind of specific. So the regular filing deadline for Form 2290 is August 31st of each year for the tax period starting on July 1st and ending on June 30th of the following year. If the due date falls, let's say, on a weekend or a federal holiday, the deadline is extended to the next business day. It's important to file and pay your taxes on time to avoid penalties and interest. And so there are tax payment options. I've showed you before. You have the EFTPS, you have credit card, debit card, check, money order. And you also want to provide as much information about the vehicle. You also want to think about the mileage limit for suspended vehicles. So this is 5,000 or 7,500 miles or less for agricultural vehicles. And in terms of record keeping, it's crucial to maintain proper records of your Form 2290 filings and related documents for at least 3 years. So we are speaking about 3 years. And when we talk about proper documentation, we are speaking about proof of payment, stamped Schedule 1, and any supporting documentation. I want to give you a few pro tips when we talk about Form 2290. And it's one of those things where you want to pay attention to the filing deadlines, of course. You want to pay attention to the extensions, of course. Now, the deadlines, I've already said it, August 31st, simple. Extensions, it really depends. So the IRS allows a 1-month extension for filing Form 2290 if you need additional time to prepare and submit your return. So this is kind of cool. Now, to request an extension, you must submit Form 4868, application for automatic extension of time to file U.S. Individual income tax return, and you have to actually submit this to the IRS. And so instead of August 31st, which is the original deadline, you are going to September 30th. So this gives you 30 more days, and this is automatic. Okay, and so in terms of payment deadline, this is actually pretty straightforward too, regardless of whether you file by the regular deadline or, let's say, obtain an extension. The HVUT payment is still due by August 31st. If you fail to make the payment on time, penalties and interest may apply. And so it's one of those things where you have to see what really works for your situation. One thing I want to say here is that you want to plan. This is part of your tax planning scenario, right? So when we talk about payments, when we talk about filing, all this has to be part of your tax plan scenario so that you are not surprised at the last minute of your tax related, I would say, obligations. And one thing I also want to say here is that please remember that in any circumstance, it's always better to e-file as opposed to manually filing if you do meet the qualifications. For example, if you have if you are a taxpayer reporting 25 or more vehicles, for instance, the IRS wants you to e-file. I mean, even if you have fewer than 25 vehicles, the IRS encourages you. But once you have more than 25 or more, once you have more than 25, it becomes mandatory. It's no longer an encouragement. It is mandatory. So, I mean, in either case, in our view, it's just a lot better to e-file. That way, you are making yourself feel like you are keeping yourself safe from any audit risk or any regulatory requirements. Before I close to this conversation, I want to talk to you about some common mistakes to avoid while filing Form 2290. And when we talk about Form 2290, this is a form that requires a lot of transparency, a lot of accountability. And it's one of those things where, for example, you have incorrect or incomplete information. You want to ensure that all the information provided on the form is accurate and complete. So by complete, we're speaking about up to date also. So you want to double check things like your VIN, your business name, address, and tax year, and also make sure that you are filing with you are filing with the right tax period. In other words, do not file with the wrong tax period. So Form 2290 is filed annually for the tax period starting from July 1st and ending on June 30th for the following June 30th of the following tax year. So make sure you are filing for the correct tax period. Also, make sure that you have the correct vehicle information. So you want to provide accurate details for each vehicle. I'm speaking about the VIN, the taxable gross weight, and the category. Mistakes in these details can lead actually to penalties and delays in processing. Also, make sure that you pay attention to suspended vehicles. So if your vehicle is expected to travel less than 5,000 miles or 75 miles for agricultural vehicles during the tax period, you may qualify for a suspended or reduced tax rate. So ensure you properly indicate any suspended vehicles on the form, and also make sure that you report the mileage exceeding the limits. So if a suspended vehicle exceeds the mileage thresholds during the tax period, you gotta report this, and the tax must be paid for that period. And a failure to actually do so can result in penalties. And also, you want to think about you want to have the correct payment information, and also always keep adequate records. So maintain accurate records of filed Form 2290s. We're speaking about proof of payment and any supporting documents for at least 3 years. So the regulatory requirements here is 3 years, so that you are able to be safe in case of future audits and or inquiries. So this is kind of important to keep in mind. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Let me quickly recap to this conversation. So I was talking to you about Form 2290, and I gave you the overview of the form, the approach, the bonus, the pro tips, and now the recap. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.